The night was colder than usual in the little village near the river. The moon shone brightly on the calm water, making it look like a silver path stretching into another world. The villagers always warned their children never to go near the river after dark. They said spirits lived inside the water, and the spirits were always hungry for human souls. Never go alone to the river, old women whispered by the fireside. If you hear a voice calling your name from the water, run. If you see a figure standing on the shore, close your eyes and don't answer. The river may look beautiful, but it is dangerous. The spirits can smile at you, but their smile is not human. But Clara, a young girl of 16, had never been good at obeying warnings. She was curious, more curious than all the children in the village. She had hair the color of golden wheat and eyes as blue as the river itself. People often said she looked like she belonged to the water. Clara loved to sit by the riverbanks during the day, dipping her feet in the cool current and listening to the soft song the river made as it flowed. Her mother often scolded her. "Clara, you must be careful. The river is not just water. It has a spirit." My grandmother told me terrible stories. A girl once went to the river at night and never came back. "Promise me you will never go there after sunset." Clara would smile, nod politely, and promise. But in her heart, she was restless. She felt the river calling to her. At night, when the village slept, she could almost hear a soft voice in the wind whispering her name. One evening, after a long day of chores, Clara sat outside her family's small cottage. The moonlight painted everything silver, and the air smelled of wet earth after the rain. The sound of the river was louder than usual, as if it were singing. She felt her chest tighten, her curiosity too strong to resist. She whispered to herself, "Just a quick walk. Just to see the river at night. Nothing will happen." Her feet carried her silently through the village paths. She walked past the old trees, past the fields where the crickets chirped, until she reached the riverbank. The water shimmered like liquid glass. It was so beautiful that her heart ached. She stepped closer, her reflection shining on the surface. But something strange happened. Another reflection appeared beside her, tall, broad, and unfamiliar. Clara gasped and turned. Standing beside her was a young man. He was unlike anyone she had ever seen. His skin was pale but seemed to glow in the moonlight, and his hair was dark as midnight, falling to his shoulders. His eyes were green, brighter than emeralds, and they sparkled like the river itself. He wore no shoes, and his clothes shimmered as though they were woven from water. "Don't be afraid," the young man said softly, his voice like the sound of flowing water. "I have been waiting for you." Clara's heart pounded. Who are you?" she asked, stepping back, though she could not take her eyes off him. The man smiled, though his smile was haunting. "I am the spirit of this river. And you, Clara, are the one I have chosen." Her lips trembled. "Chosen, for what?" "To be my bride," he answered simply, as though it were the most natural thing in the world. Clara froze. "Bride?" Her breath caught in her throat. She shook her head quickly. No, that can't be. You're not real. You're just a dream." But the man stepped closer, and the ground beneath his feet rippled like water. "I am very real. You have heard my voice for many nights. You feel the river pulling you. Do not deny it. The river and I are the same, and we are calling you home." Clara's fear battled with something strange in her chest, an attraction she could not explain. His eyes seemed to pull her in, like whirlpools drawing her soul deeper. "No," she whispered, taking another step back. "I can't. I don't belong to you. I belong to my family. I belong to my village." The spirit tilted his head, his green eyes glinting. "Your village does not understand you. They laugh at your questions, they hush your curiosity. But I see you. You were born different, Clara. You belong with me, in the depths of the river, where time does not touch and beauty never fades. The night grew colder. The water behind him rose and swirled like it was alive, as though listening to its master's command. Clara wanted to run, but her legs felt heavy. Her heart pounded in her ears. Part of her wanted to scream for help, but another part wanted to listen. The river's song had always felt like it was meant for her, and now the spirit said it was true. She whispered, almost to herself, "If I go with you, will I ever come back?" The spirit smiled faintly. "You will not want to come back." At that moment, a fish leapt from the water, splashing beside them. Clara jumped and snapped out of her trance. Her instinct screamed at her to escape. She turned and ran, her bare feet pounding the earth as fast as they could carry her. She didn't dare look back, but she could hear the river spirit's voice behind her, calm and certain. "You cannot run from the river, Clara. You will return. The river never forgets its bride." Clara reached her cottage, her chest burning from the run. She slammed the wooden door shut and pressed her back against it, gasping for breath. Her mother stirred from sleep and rushed to her. "Clara, what happened? Where did you go? You're pale as death." Clara shook her head, unable to speak. Tears spilled down her cheeks. She had seen him. She had spoken to him. The spirit was real. From that night, Clara could not sleep peacefully again. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw his green eyes glowing in the dark. Every time she walked by the river, she felt his presence. The river had chosen her. And deep down, she feared the spirit was right. One day, she would return to him. Clara woke the next morning with heavy eyes. She had barely slept. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw the spirit's green gaze shining through the dark like fireflies. She sat on the edge of her bed, staring at the wooden floor, her hands trembling. Her mother noticed her silence but said nothing, only giving her a bowl of porridge and telling her to eat. The day passed slowly, with chores dragging one after another. Clara washed clothes by the stream, fed the chickens, and helped her younger brothers with firewood. But all through the day, she felt washed. Whenever she bent near water, whether a pot, a basin, or the small stream that led to the river, she thought she saw shadows moving beneath the surface. When she carried a bucket of water from the well, she paused and stared inside. The water rippled though she had not moved it, and for a second, she thought she saw his face smiling faintly up at her. She gasped, dropped the bucket, and stumbled back. The water spilled across the ground like silver snakes slithering away. Her brothers laughed. "Clara, you're so clumsy." She forced a weak smile, but her heart was not calm. That evening, she sat quietly while her family ate supper. Her father spoke about the harvest, her mother worried about the weather, and her brothers joked as usual. But Clara was not listening. Her ears were tuned to something else, the distant sound of the river. It was louder than before, as though calling her name again. When she finally lay in bed that night, the sound of the water filled her head. She pressed a pillow over her ears, but it was no use. Then she heard it clearly, a whisper inside her mind. "Clara. Clara, come to me." She sat up, shivering. Her candle had burned out, and the darkness seemed alive. She swore she heard footsteps outside the window, soft as the breeze. Slowly, trembling, she peeked through the wooden shutter. Her heart nearly stopped. There he was. The river spirit stood in the moonlight, his green eyes glowing brighter than before. His clothes shimmered like wet silk, and his pale face looked even more beautiful, almost too beautiful to belong to a man. "Why do you run from me?" he whispered, though his lips barely moved. She could hear him as though he were speaking directly into her heart. Clara shut the shutter quickly and backed away. "Go away," she whispered, tears filling her eyes. "Please leave me alone." But when she turned back to her bed, she found something lying on her blanket, though the shutter had not opened, and the door was still bolted. a flower. It was a strange flower, unlike any she had seen before. Its petals were blue and silver, glowing softly in the dark. She touched it, and it was wet, as though freshly plucked from the bottom of the river. Her chest tightened. The spirit had left her a gift. The next morning, Clara tried to throw the flower away, but no matter where she placed it outside, in the field, even buried in the soil, it always reappeared on her blanket at night. She began to fear that the spirit's claim on her was growing stronger. Days passed. Clara avoided the river as much as she could, but water was everywhere in her life. The villagers lived by it, drank from it, walked with it. Whenever she touched water, she felt a presence, sometimes gentle, sometimes pressing, sometimes angry. One afternoon, she went to fetch water with her friend, Eliza. Eliza was cheerful and talkative, the kind of girl who always had a smile. But when they reached the riverbank, Clara froze. There he was again. He was standing in the water up to his waist, watching her. He looked solid, real, as though anyone could see him. His green eyes never left her. "Clara," he called, his voice carrying over the water like music. "Come." Eliza frowned, following Clara's gaze. But she saw nothing. "Clara, what are you staring at?" Clara's lips parted, but no words came. She stumbled back, her bucket falling with a splash. Eliza grabbed her arm. "What's wrong? You look like you've seen a ghost." Clara shook her head quickly. I'm fine. I just felt dizzy." But she was not fine. She was terrified. Terrified because Eliza couldn't see him. The spirit was real, but only to her. That night, Clara finally broke down and told her mother everything: the meeting at the river, the man who claimed to be a spirit, the flower that returned every night. Her mother's face turned pale. She sat heavily on the stool and covered her mouth with trembling hands. No, it cannot be. Not again." Clara stared at her. "What do you mean, Mother? What do you know?" Her mother's eyes filled with tears. "Long ago, before you were born, my own sister, your aunt, disappeared into the river. She was your age. She told us she heard voices calling her. We thought she was imagining things. One night she went to fetch water and never came back. People said the river spirit took her." Clara's heart dropped. "And you think he wants me now?" Her mother nodded slowly, her lips trembling. "He chooses girls who belong to the water. And Clara, you have always been different. You have his eyes. You have his call in your blood." "No," Clara shouted, tears streaming down her cheeks. "I don't want him. I want to stay here, with you, with my family." Her mother held her tightly. "Then you must resist him, Clara. Do not answer when he calls. Do not look into the water at night. If you give him your attention, even once, he will drag you to his world." But resisting was harder than it sounded. Each night, his presence grew stronger. Sometimes she heard his voice outside the door. Sometimes she dreamed of walking into the river willingly, her hands in his. Sometimes she woke with her feet wet, as though she had sleepwalked almost to the shore. The village healer, an old man with a long white beard, was called to help. He gave Clara charms made of dried herbs and tied them around her wrist. He whispered prayers and told her to stay near fire at night, for fire kept spirits away. For a few days, the spirit stayed silent. Clara dared to hope it was over. But then, on the seventh night, she had a dream. In the dream, she stood in a palace beneath the water. The walls shimmered like glass, and fishes of gold swam through the halls. The river spirit stood before her, dressed in robes of blue light. He held out his hand. "Why do you fight me?" he asked, his voice echoing like waves. "You were born for me. I will give you beauty, riches, a kingdom beneath the water. No pain, no hunger, no aging. Only joy. Why would you refuse me? Clara shook her head. Because I love my family. Because I want to live in the world above. The spirit's eyes darkened, a storm swirling in their green depths. Then I will take your family from you, one by one, until you have no choice but to come. Clara woke with a scream. Her mother rushed to her bedside, but before Clara could speak, they heard the sound of the river outside, roaring louder than usual though there had been no rain. The walls of the cottage shook, and a deep voice roared through the night like thunder. You are mine, Clara. You cannot run forever. And then the river began to rise. The roar of the river shook the little village as if thunder had fallen from the sky. Clara clung to her mother, her body trembling like a leaf in the wind. Pots rattled on the shelves, the chickens outside cried in fear, and the ground itself seemed to groan. Her father burst into the room, his face pale. What is happening? The river, it is rising without rain. The whole family rushed outside. Other villagers had already gathered, staring in horror at the riverbank. The moon shone down, and under its light, the waters were swelling, climbing higher and higher, spilling into the fields. It was as though the river itself had come alive, angry and hungry. Children cried. Men shouted. Women prayed loudly, their voices desperate. Spirits of the river, be merciful. Leave us in peace. But Clara knew this was not the anger of many spirits. It was the anger of one. His voice still echoed in her head, then I will take your family from you, one by one. Her mother grabbed her arm tightly. Don't let him see you, Clara. Don't let him hear you. Stay away from the water. But it was too late. The water surged again, and in the chaos, Clara saw him. He was standing on the surface of the river as if it were solid ground, tall and glowing beneath the moonlight. His green eyes burned brighter than any flame, and his dark hair blew in a wind that did not exist. Clara, he called, his voice rolling through the night like a storm. Come to me, or I will drown them all. The villagers gasped, for some of them heard his voice too low, heavy, and inhuman. Mothers clutched their children. Men dropped to their knees, too afraid to move. Clara's heart pounded. She wanted to run, but her feet felt frozen. She felt every eye in the village turn toward her, realizing slowly that the spirit was calling her name. Her father looked at her, his face stricken with horror. Clara, what is this? What does he want with you? Tears ran down her cheeks. He says I belong to him. A wail rose from the women. The men shouted in confusion. Some villagers backed away from her, whispering. Others looked at her with pity. A few, with fear. The spirit stepped forward, the water rippling under his bare feet. One last chance, Clara. Come now, or your people will suffer. Clara's chest tightened. She could not bear the thought of her brothers drowning, her parents swept away, her village destroyed. She stepped forward, tears blinding her eyes. But before she could take another step, the old healer appeared. He raised his staff high, chanting words in a language older than the village itself. The charms tied to his robes rattled in the wind, and the firelight from the villagers' torches flared brightly. Spirit of the river, the old man shouted, his voice strong, you have no right to take this child tonight. Begone. The spirit's face darkened with rage. The water rose higher, splashing around him like angry hands. You dare to command me, old man. She is mine. She has always been mine. The healer struck his staff against the earth, and sparks flew. You may claim her spirit, but her body walks on land. And the land has power too. For a moment, the two forces clashed, the healer's fire against the spirit's water. The torches burned brighter, and the river hissed as though it were in pain. The villagers gasped as the spirit's figure flickered like mist. But before he vanished, he locked eyes with Clara. His voice was soft now, but filled with venom. You cannot hide forever. On the night of the next full moon, you will come to me. If you do not, I will bring the river to your door and wash away everything you love." Then, with a final roar, he sank beneath the water. The river calmed instantly, the surface smoothing as if nothing had happened. The villagers were silent, their faces pale and fearful. Then whispers began, low and trembling. "She is cursed. The spirit wants her. She will bring ruin to us all." Clara covered her ears, wishing she could disappear. Her father shouted above the noise, his voice breaking. "Enough. She is my daughter. No one will touch her." But fear is a powerful thing. Some villagers nodded, but others turned away. In their eyes, Clara saw something she had never seen before: rejection. That night, the family sat in silence. Clara's mother wept quietly. Her father stared into the fire, his fist clenched. Her brothers huddled close, too afraid to speak. Finally, Clara whispered, maybe I should go." Her mother grabbed her hand fiercely. "No. Don't say that. You are not his. You are mine. You belong to us." Clara's voice trembled. "But he said he would destroy the village. What if he keeps his word?" Her father spoke, his voice heavy. "Then we will fight him. We will not give our daughter to a spirit." But Clara knew in her heart that fighting him was not enough. The spirit had chosen her, and his power was beyond anything the villagers could resist. The old healer's fire had pushed him back, but only for a time. The days that followed were filled with unease. People avoided Clara when she walked through the village. Mothers pulled their children away from her. Friends no longer greeted her. Only Eliza stayed by her side, though even she was frightened. One afternoon, Eliza whispered, "Clara, you must find a way to break this. There must be a way. Maybe the healer knows. Maybe the old stories hold a secret." Clara nodded, though her hope was fading. She decided to visit the healer. The old man sat outside his hut, his beard white as snow, his eyes deep with wisdom. When Clara came, he looked at her long and hard. "You are marked," he said simply. "The river spirit will not rest until you are his." Clara's eyes filled with tears. "Then what can I do? How can I fight him?" The healer sighed. "Spirits are tricky. They always leave a way out, though it is hidden. The river spirit said you belong to him on the night of the next full moon. That means you have time. You must prove that you belong to the land, not the water. Only then will his claim weaken." Clara frowned. "How do I prove that?" The healer leaned close, his voice low. "The river spirit is strong in water, but weak in fire. You must surround yourself with fire when he comes. But more than that, you must find the river stone. It is said to be hidden deep in the forest, guarded by creatures of both land and water. If you hold the stone, the spirit cannot take you. The stone belongs to the earth, and it gives strength to mortals against spirits." Clara's heart raced. "Where can I find it?" The healer pointed toward the dark line of the forest beyond the fields. "In the Cave of Echoes. Few have entered and returned. But it is your only hope." Clara swallowed hard. The Cave of Echoes was said to be a place where voices of the dead still lingered, where shadows moved without bodies. But if the river stone could save her, she had no choice. That night, as she lay in bed, she stared at the ceiling, unable to sleep. The full moon was only a week away. She thought of her family, her village, the faces of those who now looked at her with fear. If she did nothing, they would all suffer. Her decision was made. At dawn, Clara packed a small bag with bread, a flask of water, and the charms the healer had given her. She told her parents she was going to the forest to search for the river stone. Her mother cried and begged her not to go, but her father put a hand on her shoulder, his eyes heavy with pride and sorrow. "You are braver than I ever knew," he said softly. "Go, my daughter. May the land protect you. Clara hugged them tightly, then turned toward the dark forest. As she stepped beneath the trees, the air grew cooler, and shadows swallowed the path. Birds watched her with strange, knowing eyes. Every step she took echoed as though the forest itself were whispering. She shivered but kept walking. The cave of echoes awaited. And somewhere, deep in the river, the spirit smiled. The forest was unlike any place Clara had ever been. At first, the tall trees welcomed her with the soft rustle of leaves, and shafts of sunlight spilled through the branches. But the deeper she went, the darker it grew. The air was heavy, damp with mist, and the path seemed to twist and change as though the forest itself was alive. She had heard stories about this place, how hunters who entered sometimes never returned, how strange lights danced between the trees at night, how voices whispered from nowhere. Now she was walking into the very heart of those stories. Clara gripped the charms the healer had tied around her wrist and whispered to herself, "For my family. For my village. I must be brave." Hours passed. The bread in her bag grew lighter, the water warmer. Her feet ached, but she kept moving. Every now and then, she felt washed. The hairs on her arms rose, and once or twice she swore she saw shadows moving among the trees. By late afternoon, she reached a small clearing. In the middle stood a giant tree, so wide that 5 people holding hands could not have circled its trunk. Its roots twisted across the ground like sleeping snakes, and its branches stretched toward the sky like arms. Clara paused, staring at it. Something about the tree felt ancient, older than the village, older than the river. She stepped closer, placing her hand against the rough bark. The tree hummed softly, as though alive. And then, to her shock, a deep voice rumbled from within it. "Why do you walk here, child of land and water?" Clara jumped back, her heart pounding. Who is speaking?" The tree's bark shifted slightly, and a face seemed to form in its trunk, eyes, a nose, a mouth, carved by nature but alive with expression. "I am the guardian of the forest," the voice said. "Few come this far, and fewer leave. Why are you here?" Clara swallowed her fear and forced herself to speak. "I am looking for the Cave of Echoes. They say the river stone is hidden there. I must find it, or the river spirit will take me." The tree was silent for a moment, its eyes watching her closely. Finally, it rumbled, "The Cave of Echoes lies beyond this forest, but the path is not simple. You will face trials, for the stone is not given freely. It is earned." Clara's hands trembled. "What trials?" "Courage, truth, and sacrifice," the tree replied. "The stone will test you. If your heart is weak, you will not return." Clara bowed her head, tears prickling her eyes. "I am afraid. But if I do nothing, everyone I love will suffer. I will face the trials." The great tree's mouth curved into what looked like a sad smile. "Then go, child. Follow the path where the birds do not sing. It will lead you to the cave." The face faded, leaving only bark again. Clara took a shaky breath and whispered, "Thank you." She turned and walked toward the path that stretched into silence. The further she went, the quieter the forest became. No birds sang. No insects hummed. Even the wind seemed to hold its breath. By nightfall, she reached the entrance of the Cave of Echoes. It gaped like a black mouth in the side of a rocky hill. Cold air spilled out of it, carrying faint whispers, low, mournful voices that sent shivers down her spine. Clara lit the small lantern she had brought and stepped inside. The cave walls glittered with strange crystals that glowed faintly blue. Her footsteps echoed loudly, and the whispers grew clearer. They were voices of men and women, crying, laughing, calling her name. "Clara! Clara!" Her hands shook, but she pressed on. The first chamber opened wide, filled with mist. A figure appeared ahead, shaped like a man. Clara froze, her breath catching. It was her father. "Clara, The figure said, his voice gentle. Why are you here, my child? Come home. The river spirit will not harm you. Stay with your family, and all will be well. Tears filled her eyes. It looked exactly like him, his kind face, his strong shoulders, even the way he stood. She longed to run into his arms. But deep down, something felt wrong. Her father would never tell her to give up. He would never surrender to fear. She shook her head. You are not my father. You are only an echo. The figure's smile vanished, and it dissolved into mist. Clara stumbled forward, wiping her tears. She had passed the first test truth. The second chamber was darker. Her lantern flickered, and shadows stretched long across the floor. Suddenly, water gushed from the walls, rising quickly. In moments, the chamber was half flooded, the cold water climbing her legs. Clara gasped and scrambled onto a rock, clutching her lantern high. The whispers grew louder, mocking. You cannot escape. The river will claim you. Drown, child, drown. The water rose to her waist, then her chest. Clara's heart pounded wildly. She could barely breathe. Her mind screamed at her to give up, to let go. But she thought of her brother's laughter, her mother's warm hands, her father's proud eyes. She thought of Eliza, who had promised to wait for her. No, she shouted, raising her voice above the whispers. I will not give up. I will not belong to him. The water froze, then slowly drained back into the stone floor until the chamber was dry again. Clara fell to her knees, gasping for breath. She had passed the second test courage. Shaking but determined, she continued deeper. The third chamber was the largest. In its center stood a pedestal of stone, and on it lay a small glowing object, the river stone. It shimmered with blue and gold light, pulsing like a living heart. Clara's eyes widened. She had found it. But as she stepped closer, a voice echoed from above. To take the stone, you must give something in return. A figure appeared before her, cloaked in shadows. Its eyes glowed white, piercing and cold. Sacrifice, it said. What will you give up, child, to claim the stone? Clara's heart sank. She had nothing of value but herself. What do you want from me? The shadow's voice roared like thunder. The stone demands love. To hold it, you must let go of the one you love most. Choose. Clara's eyes filled with tears. No. I can't. I love them all, my family, my village. How can I choose? The figure's voice grew sharper. Without sacrifice, the stone will never be yours. Choose, or leave empty-handed. Clara fell to her knees, sobbing. Her mind raced. Then she whispered, if sacrifice must be made, then let it be me. Take my happiness, my peace, my future. But leave my family safe. Let them live free. The cave fell silent. The shadow tilted its head, and then slowly, it faded into nothing. The river stone paused brighter, as though hearing her vow. Clara reached out with trembling hands and lifted it. It was warm, almost alive, and as she held it, strength surged through her. For the first time, she felt protected. She whispered, I will not be his bride. I will not belong to the river. The whispers faded. The cave grew quiet. She had passed the third test sacrifice. Exhausted but victorious, Clara left the cave. The dawn was breaking, painting the sky gold and pink. She stepped into the forest with the river stone in her hand, her heart burning with hope. But as she reached the edge of the trees, she saw the river in the distance. It shimmered strangely, and for a brief moment, she thought she saw him, the spirit watching her from the water's edge, his green eyes glowing. He smiled faintly, not with anger, but with something darker. You think the stone will save you, Clara, his voice whispered in the wind. The full moon is near. And the river always takes what belongs to it. Clara gripped the stone tightly, her chest heavy with fear and determination. The battle was not over. It was only beginning. The moon was full, shining bright above the river. The waves danced like silver threads, moving faster and stronger as if the water spirit himself was preparing for his great feast. Down below, in the watery palace, Elara's heart beat like a drum inside her chest. The tortoise had told her that this night was her last chance. If she failed, she would never leave the spirit's world again. The river spirit had been watching her all week. His eyes, deep and glowing like emerald stones, followed her every step. He seemed more restless, more eager, as though he could sense she was planning something. Elara tried her best to hide her fear. She walked gently, smiled politely, and spoke softly whenever he called her. But deep in her heart, she was ready. She had no other choice. At midnight, the spirit summoned all the spirits of the river. They filled the palace halls, their bodies made of swirling water, their faces glowing with strange light. They began to sing, their voices echoing like 1,000 whispers through the palace walls. The spirit reached for Elara's hand, his smile sharp as a knife. "Tonight, you will become mine forever," he said. Elara swallowed her fear. She remembered the tortoise's words, "The mirror will show his true face. Do not tremble. Do not run. Stand firm, and you will break his hold." She pressed the small mirror against her chest, hiding it in her dress. The spirit led her to the center of the great hall. The water spirit circled around them, clapping, singing, chanting. The water rose higher, covering her feet, her knees, and soon it was at her waist. She felt the river pulling her, trying to draw her deeper into its eternal prison. The spirit raised his hand, and the waves froze in place. "Now you belong to me," he said. Elara's hands shook, but she pulled the mirror from her dress. The polished glass caught the light of the moon that shone even through the water palace. She lifted it high, pointing it at the river spirit. The hall fell silent. The river spirit's face flickered. His handsome image began to melt like wax before fire. The crowd of spirits gasped. In the mirror, Elara saw not the beautiful man, but a hideous creature with scales covering his skin, sharp teeth, and eyes that burned like green fire. He roared in anger, trying to snatch the mirror away, but the tortoise's magic held strong. "You deceived me," the spirit thundered. His voice shook the palace walls, and the waters trembled as though the river itself was in pain. "No mortal dares show me my true face." Elara's voice was firm, though her heart raced. "You trapped many before me, but you will not trap me. I belong to my people, not to your waters." The mirror shone brighter, and the spirit shrieked in rage. His palace began to crack. The spirits scattered, their watery bodies melting into streams. The floor split open, and a great current rose up, pulling Elara upwards, lifting her away from the crumbling palace. She felt the waters drag her with unstoppable force, but instead of fear, she felt freedom. When she opened her eyes, she was lying on the riverbank. The moon was still high, shining silver on the dark waters. Beside her, the tortoise crawled slowly out of the river. Its shell glistened as though made of moonlight. "You are safe," the tortoise said gently. "But never forget he still lives. The spirit cannot die. You have broken free, but his anger will remain. Always remember to respect the river, for it holds both life and death." Elara sat up. Her clothes were wet, her hair dripping with river water, but she was free. For the first time in weeks, she breathed fresh air, smelled the earth, and felt the solid ground beneath her hands. She looked at the tortoise with tears in her eyes. "Thank you," she whispered. The tortoise only nodded and slipped back into the water. Elara walked back to her village before the sun rose. When she entered, the people could not believe their eyes. They thought she had vanished forever. Her mother wept and held her tightly. The elders came to listen to her story. Ilara told them everything: the beauty and the horror of the spirit's palace, the many wives trapped forever, the tortoise's wisdom, and the danger of curiosity without caution. From that day, the people of the village treated the river with new respect. No one went near its banks at night. Every year, they brought gifts of food and flowers, laying them by the shore to honor the spirit and keep his anger calm. The elders told children the tale of Ilara, the girl who married a river spirit but returned through courage and wisdom. And as for Ilara, she grew into a woman strong and wise. She married a man from her village, but she never forgot the cold beauty of the river, nor the green eyes of the spirit who had tried to keep her forever. Sometimes, when the rains came heavy and the river swelled beyond its banks, she would hear a whisper in the rushing waters, calling her name. And she would hold her children close and whisper back, "You will never take me again." The river spirit never stopped watching, and the river never stopped flowing. But Ilara's story lived on, a warning and a lesson for generations to come. The end.